What is going on, YouTube? It's your boy Spanko, and today I got a true Draco deck profile for August of 2020. Now, obviously, it's not really a post-ban list profile. Granted, the ban list did help us out with Pantheism. Yes, I know there's Monarch cards in here, but it's pure true Draco more or less. This is just some draw power for the deck. But if you guys didn't watch my last video, which was True Draco Monarch, you should make sure to check that out. That's actually a really spicy build, and I actually really like that build. This one is focused more around the true Dracos. Again, just the Pantheism is here because it's just free draw power for the deck. And funny enough, a lot of the Monarch cards just work with true Draco cards. Something like Monarch's Erupt has always been one of the best cards in true Draco, and so just because Pantheism is back, it can make use of like extra Monarch Erupts in hand. March of the Monarchs is actually really good, and I feel like a lot of people forgot about this card, but March of the Monarchs is not bad. You got Stormforth, you got Strike of the Monarchs, which is also a really cool card, and then I am playing one Prime, but we'll just get into that when I get into the deck profile. But just Pantheism does give you draw power for true Draco, so it is kind of cool. But again, if you guys didn't check out the Monarch True Draco, check that out. That one's a really good profile in my opinion. That one's really cool. But True Draco is low-key one of still the best rogue decks in the game. Just being able to flip a bunch of floodgates on your opponent, and now that we have like better access to domain with something like Pantheism as well, it just even gets better. So True Draco, I think, actually low-key got buffed in this most recent ban list. Even though it's not directly buffed, I think they did get buffed. Now, just before we get into this video, if you guys haven't already, make sure to check out all my social media. Links will be in the description below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're on our way to 5,000. Let's see if we can get to 5,000 before the end of 2020. So that's the goal, 5,000. Let's go, let's get it. And then lastly, if you guys haven't checked out the channel membership, yes, there's a join button right beside the subscribe button. Check that out. There's a lot of cool perks. I explained it in a video a few days ago, so if you guys want to check that out as well, it'll be up on the channel. But I did explain the channel membership. You get a lot of cool perks if you become a channel member, and it does help support me and support the channel. So without further ado, one Dynamite Knight right over here for the deck profile. And Dynamite Knight, I mean, there's no reason to play not one, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. 3 Ignis, it's probably one of the best ones that you have now. Searching your spells is actually very important. So triple Ignis and only double Majesty. Like, Majesty is not that great. Searching out a monster is good, it's cool, whatever, but because you're playing such a low monster count anyways, like, Majesty is not that good. It becomes a lot better if we had something like Dynamite back at more than one, or we had Masterpiece for some reason, then Majesty does become better. But because we don't have any of those cards really, Majesty is not that great. I still just wanted to play that too because you did want to see a monster. The thing is, when you play less than 6 monsters, so in this case we're playing 6 of the True Draco monsters, you really start to struggle because you really need to see a monster in your turn 1 play. Make stuff like Monarch's Erupt live, make stuff like tributing your spells and traps so that you can get their effects off live. Thing is, like, when you have no monsters, you kind of struggle in that sense. So you definitely want to at least see one monster, and that's why these 6 is perfect. And then I am playing 1 Inspector Border rather than a 3rd Majesty Maiden, because Inspector Border is just one of those things that straight up, if you don't have a continuous card to tribute for, you can just normal summon this. Turn 1, this is also really good. Like, the thing is, a lot of the time, turn 1, like, these monsters don't do too much for you. Of course, this is going to search you a spell, this is going to search you a trap, and this will search you a monster. But I mean, like, in general, like, they don't really provide anything for you other than that search, but then that search also has to be triggered by something, whereas Inspect Border can actually just be really good because you can normal summon it, and if your opponent doesn't have an immediate out to this, they're kind of stuck, right? So Inspector Border, I think, is really cool. Didn't want to play multiple of it, even though I guess you could, but I just thought 1 was enough. When I see it, I see it. Next, we're playing Triple Pantheism of the Monarchs. I know, man, I know. It's a Monarch card, but I'm telling you, this card is amazing. You send a Monarch spell or trap card from your hand to the graveyard, you draw 2 cards. Then you can banish this card from the graveyard, reveal 3, add 1 to your hand. So it's a Pot of Greed. Like, there's no reason to not play this card. Like, even in True Draco, I know this is not a Monarch build, I know this whatever, but it's just one of those things that a draw 2 in a deck that it synergizes really well with just naturally is just so good. Then you are still playing 1 card Demise because, I mean, we only are playing 6 monsters, or 7 monsters I should say overall. So we're only playing 7 monsters, so I think card Demise could be one of those really good blowout cards. 1 Terraforming searches into your diagram as well as your domains, even though Pantheism also searches to your domains, but the diagram is still pretty relevant in this because you're playing more True Dracos rather than when, like, we were playing the True Draco Monarch build. You didn't really need the terraforming because domain was more important, but here, because we're playing the, like, more or less pure True Draco, you do need the diagram more, so that's really good. Double Duality, I never liked playing 3 Duality because Duality into Duality sucks. It's a once per turn kind of card, but I still want to play it at 2 because it lessens the chance of drawing Duality into Duality, like revealing another Duality. But then also, I think with the Pantheism, you have enough draw power plus all your spell card draw power. I think it's perfectly fine just at 2 as it is. And then I am playing one of the Strike, one of the Stormforth, and one of the March. I'm also playing one Prime, but I'll get into that when I get to the trap cards. But the one Prime is for the same reason as these 3 right over here. And pretty much the Strike, if you guys don't know what Strike does, you tribute a face up level 5 or higher normal summoned monster, so any of your true Draco monsters, and then you can draw a card, and it also lets you negate 1 card on the field. So it negates anything, really, any face up card on the field. So that's why it's really good, because 1, it's a negate, 2, it gets you a draw, but 3, if your opponent, let's say, were to out one of your true Draco monsters anyways, let's say they were about to, you know, attack over it or whatever the situation is, then you can just tribute it off, right, and then just get a free draw, and because you're losing the monster anyways, you might as well get something out of it. So you're getting a negate and you're getting a draw with this. Stormforth is obviously Stormforth is really good. March of the Monarchs, I feel like fell off the face of the planet, and I didn't play it in the Monarch True Draco build, but looking back at it, like, this card's insane. So tribute summon monsters you control cannot be targeted by or destroyed by card effects, period. Obviously, you cannot special summon from the extra deck, but that's not a problem for you. But March of the Monarchs is actually a really insane card. I don't think you want to play it more than one, because, again, you're just going to reveal it with Pantheism. But the reason this card is so good is because imagine tributing something for, like, a true Draco monster, like, let's say a Dynamite Knight or Ignis, right? You tribute summon for that, and you activate your March of the Monarchs. Now, that monster is, 1, boosted by Diagram, because Diagram boosts all their attack, but also Diagram makes it so that they can't be destroyed once by battle, right? So now they have battle protection with something like, let's say, Diagram. Also, Domain gives them an 800 attack boost during the damage step, so this is kind of also some form of battle protection. But then you can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. It's just one of those things that makes your true Draco monsters untargetable now, and they're really hard to destroy by battle because of these cards right over here. So can't be targeted, can't be destroyed by card effects, and it's going to be pretty difficult to get over them by battle. So March of the Monarchs is one of those things that's very low key, but you set this up and it's really good. And then worst case scenario, if you don't need it, if you have it in your hand, you ditch it off of Pantheism to draw 2, or you just tribute for it, because of course it's a continuous spell, right? And then obviously you're playing triple Heritage, triple Disciples. There's no reason not to play triple of these 3. 1 Diagram as well as 2 Domain, which I already explained. These cards are like the heart and soul of your deck. Domain, again, you have multiple access into. In the Monarch build, I didn't actually play Terraforming. I just played triple Domain because you really needed to get some Domain in that build. With this kind of build, because it is true Draco, the Diagram is more important, like I said earlier, so Terraforming instead of the 3rd Domain. But if you're playing the Monarch build, I would just play triple Domain, to be honest. And then next, for the Floodgates, for the stuff that wins you every single duel, triple, there can only be 1. I'm not even going to explain this card. This card's insane. You just flip this up against so many decks and they just can't play. You pull out 1 True King's Return. Actually, I should put these over here, but triple Apocalypse, the true Draco traps are obviously very important. You got triple Monarchs Erupt. Again, triple is really good because 1, if you draw multiple of it, it's okay because you can pitch it off Pantheism. 2, if you don't have one of them in your hand, you can banish the Pantheism from your graveyard and reveal 3 Erupt, and aka you are now guaranteed an Erupt in hand, which means you're guaranteed an Erupt set, right? So that's really good. And then 3, the thing is, like, even if you just draw into this card and you don't search off of it or you don't pitch it off Pantheism, like, this card is just insane on its own. It's a skill drain pretty much if you control a tribute summon monster, and that's why if you guys see I'm not playing a skill drain. But I should mention, like, you can maybe probably play skill drain in the extra deck because that card is still really good, but it's just because you have a searchable pretty much skill drain here, like, you don't really need to play the skill drain anymore. I remember back in the day when Pantheism was banned, people would play triple of this plus a skill drain, but now you have a searchable skill drain, so that's why this card's insane. I'm playing 1 Prime. Now, of course, if you draw into it, it's not great, but 1, you have it for Pantheism to discard off of Pantheism to draw 2, but then the other effect is if it's in your graveyard, you can special summon it, and now it becomes like tribute fodder for you. It's 1,000 attack, so technically if you needed that extra damage to go for game, it could do that for you. It's 2,400 defense, so it protects you from dying if that ends up happening. But another thing that could actually potentially be a thing where is if you have it in your hand, you could just set it and then tribute summon one of your true Draco monsters, because a lot of time I noticed that if I drew a true Draco and an Erupt, right, and no other continuous traps, it would be kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to tribute over my Erupt, which is kind of like a waste of an Erupt because I really want this on the field, right? So Prime just gave me that other option where it's like, oh my god, now I drew into this. I want this in the graveyard anyway, so might as well set it, tribute over it, and then I can set my Erupt, or I can set whatever other Floodgate I wanted without having to actually tribute them. And then from there, this is now in your graveyard, and then obviously in the graveyard, it's really good. So that's why I thought Prime was really cool at 1. Again, you could sub this out if you wanted to sub this out for a skill drain. You could also sub it up for any of these Monarch spells. Just play a second of any single one of these. I think Stormforth would probably be the way to go, but if you wanted to, you could just play a second. But I just thought this card was so good in so many ways. Also, just setting it low-key makes your opponent think like, oh, okay, what Floodgate is that? What Floodgate is that? Now I gotta play around that card as well. Like, it's a bluff, right? It's Prime, so you know it's not gonna do anything, but it makes your opponent think, okay, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to out this? Also, if you have like 2 or 3 cards set and your opponent has a Cosmic Cyclone, they could hit Prime, and then now it protects your other cards. So there's so many situations where this card just comes up and it's actually not bad. And then obviously, like I said, triple Apocalypse and then triple Judgment, because is you do lose to Harpy Feather Duster, you do lose to Evenly Match, you do lose to Lightning Storm. So Judgment, because you want to get into it, you want to make sure your stuff is protected, and you're pretty much going to win the game from there. And then I did put together a side deck. Obviously there's no extra deck because you're playing the Monarch cards. You don't really need an extra deck anyways, but you do want to play a pretty good side deck for the meta, and I think I put together a good side deck for this meta. Now, notoriously, Imperm has always been a main deck card in True Draco, and that's because it's technically the only actual hand trap you can main deck safely in True Draco. Now, I still think it's a really good card in the main deck, and I actually would still main it, but I just found that the consistency of this deck right here was just too good to remove some of the pieces. Like, the Imperm would take spots like, for example, these, or they would take like a Duality spot, or they would take maybe one of the Prime Monarch spots. But the thing is, once you start taking those spots out, then Pantheism becomes less live because you have less Monarch cards to ditch off of it pretty much. You also have the chance of opening like Imperms and no continuous traps, and then you're kind of like, okay, well now I can't summon anything. Like, sure, I have an Imperm, but I can't actually make any plays. So even though Imperm's insane, and I think Imperm's one of the best hand traps of the format, I just think in this deck the consistency is way too valuable to main deck it, so I am putting it to the side deck. But this is really good going first or going second, of course, against so many decks, especially against Dragoons. Now I should mention this deck kind of struggles against Dragoon, and the only reason I take that is because going second, True Draco is notoriously just really good, right? Being able to tribute your spells to pop back row, being able to tribute your traps to pop monsters is really good. The thing is, Dragoons can't be targeted, won't be destroyed. So Dragoons is kind of one of those cards that makes it a little bit more difficult to play around. So that's why the side deck is pretty much built for Dragoons. Triple Gamma Seal and triple Imperm. Imperm, obviously you can't stop Dragoons, but you stop the Verte. So triple Gamma Seal and triple Imperm just for the Dragoons play pretty much. Double Evenly Matched. I think this card is still really good at 2. I wouldn't play 3. I mean, I guess you could play 3, take out one of the Dark Bribes, but I think Dark Bribe is more important because, again, games 2 and games 3, you know your opponent's going to be siding in Harpy's Feather Duster, Twin Twister, etc., etc. So you really want to make sure your traps stay on the field, and so Dark Bribe just does that for you. 1 red reboot for the same pretty much reason. If someone evenly matches you, red reboot's the best counter to that. And then I am playing triple Soul Drain. Now this card is a card that I was thinking of. I'm like, man, this destroys the meta now. Like, it actually destroys the meta. So the reason I say that is because, 1, Orcus is going to be really good again. Dogmatika is obviously really good. There's a lot of just general decks that use the graveyard and utilize the graveyard. Soul Drain completely shuts them down. You pay 1,000 life points, monsters that are banished as well as monsters in the graveyard cannot activate their effects. Now imagine flipping this against an Orcus player. Can't play. Now imagine flipping this against a Dogmatika player. Now you might be thinking, hey, why is it good against Dogmatika? Well, when they send like the Entis off of punishment, or when they send a Titanic Clyde, or whatever they send, none of the effects are going to go off. Like, literally none of the effects are going to go off for this. There's also the ritual based decks that, you know, they send heralds to search cards. Well, okay, well now you can't really activate the herald effect because all those effects happen in the graveyard. So none of those effects are going to go off. It shuts down so much of the meta. Now the other option, again, you could play 2 of this and 1 skill drain. Like I said, I'm not playing the skill drain. I just thought it was redundant. But if you didn't want to play this, you could play double as well as the 1 skill drain. But I just think triple is so good. So many cards and so many decks are utilizing the graveyard and activating effects in the graveyard. So just being able to shut down the graveyard plus shutting down like the field with Erupt, how crazy is that? Think about it. Your opponent can't use the graveyard if you flip a Soul Drain. If you flip an Erupt with it, they can't use any cards on the field, or monsters on the field, I should say. So now their monsters on the field are useless. Their monsters in the graveyard are useless. I guess potentially monsters banished are also not going to be doing anything. Or you flip it up with like, there can only be 1, or you flip it up with like just generally like a domain or something. Like, I don't know how your opponent's going to be playing through that. So I just thought Soul Drain was good against so many meta decks, and it just covers a lot of decks that you would not otherwise cover. So that's it for the deck profile. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, consider checking out my channel membership. Again, the video is going to be on the channel already, so if you guys haven't, just check that out. I detail everything in there, but you get some really cool perks if you become a channel member. And again, it supports me, supports the channel, supports the community. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think of the deck, and also let me know if you guys have any suggestions. I always love taking you guys' suggestions, so let me know in the comment section down below. With that, guys, Spanko signing out. Peace.
My hands steady, I feel ready, but my legs heavy, I don't get it. How come I haven't hit it already? Still working, I'm still learning, I'm still searching, finally earning something, finally turning something called a profit. If I hear you talking shit, don't get caught in it. I'll be popping off and hit your ass, dropping all your shit. Yeah, I promise this, I got promises, you ain't stopping this, cross my shit.